The thing about humans is that nobody takes them seriously until it's too late. I learned this lesson the hard way, watching from the third row of the Galactic Military Academy's combat theory amphitheater. My name is Threll, and I'm a Kavarian, which means I stand roughly 8 feet tall when I'm not trying to intimidate anyone. When I am trying, well, let's just say I've made grown soldiers reconsider their career choices. But that day, that specific day, I wasn't the one doing the intimidating. The amphitheater was packed, 300 cadets from 40 different species, all crammed into ascending rows of seats that curved around a central training floor. The air smelled like a cocktail of different atmospheric preferences, anxiety, and the weird lunch the Zenthari always brought. You know the one. Smells like burning rubber mixed with sweetened plasma. Absolutely vile. At the front of the room stood Instructor Veclor, a 6-armed hexapod who'd seen action in the frontier wars and had the scars to prove it. He was drawing tactical formations on the holographic display, explaining how the Terran Defense Forces had held the line at Proxima Station against impossible odds. And sitting in the front row, completely relaxed, was the human. Her name was Kira Voss, and she'd arrived at the academy 3 cycles ago. Short by galactic standards, maybe 5.5 feet tall. With dark skin and hair she kept tied back in what humans call a bun. She wore the standard academy uniform, grey and fitted, with the Earth insignia on her shoulder, a small blue planet with white swirls. Honestly, it looked fragile. Everything about her looked fragile. Which is exactly what Dravik thought. Dravik was Zenthari, part of one of the most prestigious warrior cultures in the known galaxy. 7 feet of muscle and attitude, with scaled skin that could deflect small arms fire, and a family military lineage going back 600 generations. His people had conquered 12-star systems before humans had even invented the wheel. He sat 2 rows behind Kira, and he'd been making comments for the past 20 minutes. Not loud enough for Instructor Veclor to hear, just loud enough for those of us nearby to catch every word, dripping with contempt. "Look at it," Dravik whispered to his seatmate, a Volturi named Kess. "Sitting there like it belongs, like it could actually survive real combat." Kess shifted uncomfortably. Most people did around Dravik. The Zenthari had a reputation, and Dravik seemed determined to live up to every aggressive stereotype his species had earned. I tried to focus on the lecture. Veclor was showing footage from the battle now, grainy recordings of human soldiers coordinating defensive positions, while plasma fire lit up the darkness around them. It was actually impressive. The humans had been outnumbered 15-1, and somehow managed to hold until reinforcements arrived. "Probably faked," Dravik muttered. "Humans are good at propaganda, not much else." A few nervous laughs rippled through nearby seats. I didn't laugh. Something about the way Kira's shoulders had tensed told me she'd heard him. She hadn't turned around, hadn't acknowledged the comments at all, but there was a change in her posture. Subtle, controlled, dangerous. Dravik didn't notice. Or if he did, he didn't care. He leaned forward, close enough that his voice would definitely carry to Kira now. "Tell me, human, when this footage was recorded, were your people still hiding in caves? Or had you graduated to mud huts by then?" The amphitheater got very quiet, very fast. Instructor Veclor paused mid-sentence, his eyes scanning the room with the precision of someone who'd dealt with cadet drama for 3 decades. "Is there a problem, Cadet Dravik?" "No problem, sir," Dravik replied smoothly, leaning back in his seat. "Just curious about Terran military history. We're studying it, after all. Seems important to understand context." The way he said context made it clear he meant something else entirely. Veclor's compound eyes narrowed, but he couldn't exactly punish someone for asking a question, even if the tone suggested something far less academic. "The context, Cadet, is that the humans held that position for 16 hours against overwhelming force. You'd do well to study how they accomplished that, rather than questioning whether they did." "Of course, sir," Dravik smiled. The Zenthari version of a smile involved showing a lot of very sharp teeth. "I'm sure the human cadet here could explain their species' tactics, since she's obviously an expert on human military capability." Now Kira did move. She turned in her seat, slow and deliberate, and looked directly at Dravik. Her expression was perfectly neutral. But her eyes... There was something in her eyes that made my secondary heart skip a beat. "I wouldn't call myself an expert," she said quietly. Her voice was steady, almost gentle. "But I know enough." "Enough to what?" Dravik pressed. He was enjoying this now, you could tell. Had an audience, had someone who couldn't really fight back without getting in trouble. Classic bully behavior, and the Zenthari had raised it to an art form. Enough to explain how your species stumbled into galactic society barely a century ago and somehow thinks it can compete with civilizations that have been waging war for millennia. That's enough, Veclor said sharply. But Dravik was on a roll. He stood up, his full height making everyone nearby feel suddenly smaller. No, I'm genuinely curious, because from where I'm sitting, humans are the charity case of the Galactic Council. We let you join because you were cute, novel. But actual warriors, he laughed, a harsh barking sound. You're prey animals who got lucky with tool use. The insult hung in the air like smoke. Kira stood up too. Slowly, the height difference was almost comical. She came up to maybe his chest, and probably weighed a third of what he did. Every logical calculation said this should be no contest. That's what made what happened next so utterly, completely unbelievable. Sit down, Cadet Voss, Veclor ordered. His voice had taken on that edge that instructors use when they know something's about to happen and they really, really don't want to deal with the paperwork. I will, sir, Kira said. Still calm, still quiet. But first, I'd like to address Cadet Dravik's concerns about human capability. This isn't the time or place for. It'll only take a moment. She turned fully to face Dravik. Now, and I swear every cadet in that amphitheater held their breath at once. You think we're weak, she said. Not a question. A statement. You think because we're smaller, newer to space, that we can't compete, that we don't belong here. I don't think it, Dravik said, crossing his massive arms. I know it. Okay. Kira nodded, like he'd just confirmed something she'd suspected. Want me to prove otherwise? That got Dravik's attention. His scales rippled with what I'd learned to recognize as anticipation. You challenging me, human? No, Kira said. Challenging would imply uncertainty about the outcome. The amphitheater erupted into murmurs. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Was she insane? Dravik was twice her size and trained since childhood in 17 different combat forms. This wasn't going to be a fight. It was going to be a massacre. Instructor Veclor moved to intervene, but Dravik held up a hand. Sir, if the human wants to demonstrate Terran military capability, shouldn't we let her? For educational purposes? There was nothing educational about the look on his face. Pure predatory glee. Veclor hesitated. This was a military academy. Technically, combat demonstrations were part of the curriculum, and technically, both cadets were volunteering. The fact that one of them was clearly about to get destroyed wasn't really grounds to stop it. Fine, he said finally. But this is a demonstration only. First touch wins, no permanent damage. Am I clear? Crystal, Dravik said, grinning wider. Clear, sir, Kira agreed. They moved to the center of the training floor. The holographic display blinked out, giving them space. 300 cadets leaned forward in their seats. I found myself gripping the armrests, not sure if I wanted to watch or look away. Dravik rolled his massive shoulders, cracking his neck with a series of pops that echoed through the amphitheater. He was making a show of it, demonstrating his size and strength. Typical intimidation tactics. For most species it would have worked beautifully. Kira just stood there, waiting. Her hands loose at her sides, weight balanced. She looked tiny standing across from him. Breakable. Ladies first, Dravik said mockingly. Oh wait, do humans even have ladies? Or just differently sized prey? We have ladies, Kira replied. We also have something you apparently don't. And what's that? Common sense. Dravik's smile disappeared. I'm going to enjoy this. He moved fast. Give him credit. For his size, he was quick. His arm shot out in a strike that would have sent most cadets flying across the room. Professional technique, textbook execution, backed by enough force to dent light armor. Kira didn't dodge. She didn't block. She moved slightly, just a small shift of her weight, and suddenly Dravik's arm was extended past where she'd been standing. Off balance, overextended. And that's when she moved. Her hand came up, fast as a plasma bolt, and struck a point on Dravik's extended elbow. Not hard, not a punch or a chop, just a precise tap with her fingertips. The sound was distinctive, a wet pop that made everyone in the amphitheater wince. Dravik's roar shook the walls. He staggered back, clutching his arm. which now bent at an angle that definitely wasn't natural for Zenthari physiology. His face had gone from confident to shocked to agonized in the span of maybe 2 seconds. And Kira? She'd already walked back to her seat, sat down, pulled out her data pad like nothing had happened at all. The silence in the amphitheater was absolute. Instructor Veclaw moved first, rushing to Dravik's side. Medical team to Amphitheater 7, immediate assistance required. He looked up at Kira, who was calmly reviewing her notes. Cadet Voss, my office. Now. Yes, sir. She stood again, tucking her datapad under her arm. As she walked past Dravik, who was still writhing on the floor, she paused. For what it's worth, that's called a hyperextension break. Humans have been doing it to each other for about 3,000 years. We got pretty good at it. Then she continued up the stairs and out of the amphitheater, leaving behind 300 stunned cadets and 1 very injured Zenthari elite. I sat there, trying to process what I'd just witnessed, trying to understand how someone so small had just dismantled someone so large without even appearing to try, without even getting out of breath. Kes, Dravik's seatmate, voiced what everyone was thinking. What in the 7 hells just happened? I think, I said slowly, we just learned why the humans held Proxima Station. Medical drones arrived, swarming around Dravik. They stabilized his arm and loaded him onto a stretcher, his protests weak and pain-filled. As they carried him past my row, I caught a glimpse of his face. The arrogance was gone, replaced by something I'd never seen in a Zenthari before. Fear. Words spread through the academy faster than a quantum transmission. By evening meal, everyone knew. The human cadet, the one nobody took seriously, the one who looked fragile and weak and out of place. She'd broken a Zenthari warrior's arm without even rising from her seat. Well, technically she'd stood up, but you get the idea. The actual break happened after she'd sat back down, which somehow made it worse. I found myself in the dining commons, surrounded by speculation and wild theories. Some cadets claimed she'd used an illegal enhancement, others suggested she'd gotten lucky, caught Dravik off guard. A few of the more paranoid ones wondered if humans had some kind of secret weapon built into their biology. I didn't buy any of it. I'd seen her face during the whole thing. The absolute control. The precision. That wasn't luck. That wasn't technology. That was training, discipline, experience. That was dangerous. My roommate, a plenary named Vic, slid into the seat across from me with his tray. You were there, right? In the amphitheater? I nodded, pushing food around my plate. Suddenly wasn't very hungry. What was it like? He leaned forward, eyes wide. I heard he came at her with full force, and she just, stepped aside. Something like that, I said. It was over in maybe 3 seconds. 1 move, that's all it took. Damn. Vic sat back. And Dravik was talking about how weak humans are, for about 20 minutes before she stood up. Bet he regrets that now. I thought about Dravik's face as they carried him away. Yeah, pretty sure he does. The dining commons doors opened, and the noise level dropped noticeably. Kira walked in, her expression neutral, heading for the food dispensers. Conversations didn't stop exactly, but they got quieter, watchful, everyone tracking her movement through the space. She seemed completely unbothered by the attention. Got her food, found an empty table in the corner, sat down and started eating, reading something on her datapad. Should we say something? Vic asked. I mean, that was kind of incredible what she did. And say what? Nice arm-breaking technique? Fair point. We watched her eat in silence for a minute. She was alone at that table, nobody approaching, nobody sitting down. It struck me then how isolated she must be. The only human at an academy filled with species that outweighed her, outreached her, and in most cases had been training for combat since before she was born. And yet she'd just proven she was more dangerous than almost any of them. I'm going to talk to her, I said, surprising myself. Vic blinked. What? Why? Because, I paused, trying to put it into words, because I want to understand how someone like her becomes someone who can do what she did. That seems like a good way to end up with a broken arm. I'll take my chances. I grabbed my tray and walked across the dining commons. Every step felt weighed down by the stares of 36 species, watching to see what the Kavarian was about to do. When I reached Kira's table, she looked up from her datapad, her expression mildly curious. Mind if I sit? I asked. She studied me for a moment, then shrugged. Free galaxy. I sat down, setting my tray across from hers. Up close, I could see the details I'd missed in the amphitheater. The calluses on her hands, the small scar above her left eyebrow, the way her eyes constantly tracked movement around the room, even while she appeared relaxed. I'm Threll, I said. I know, you sit 3 rows behind me in combat theory. Of course she knew. She probably knew where everyone sat, who they associated with, their body language patterns. You don't develop that kind of situational awareness by accident. That thing today with Dravik, I started. If you're here to tell me I went too far. No, I interrupted. I'm here because I want to know how you did it, not the technique. I mean, yes, the technique was incredible, but more. How does someone your size learn to fight someone his size? How do you prepare for that? Kira set down her datapad, giving me her full attention now. You really want to know? Yeah, I really do. She was quiet for a moment, and I got the sense she was deciding how much to share. Finally, she leaned back in her chair. Humans have been killing each other for our entire existence. We're really, really good at it. We've developed thousands of martial arts, combat systems, military strategies. Some of them are about strength and size, but a lot of them are about using your opponent's strength against them, about precision over power, about understanding anatomy and leverage and momentum. Like what you did to Dravik's elbow. Exactly like that. She took a sip of her drink. The Zenthari are tough. Their scales can take a lot of damage, but joints are joints, ligaments are ligaments. It doesn't matter how strong you are if your arm bends the wrong way. The casual way she said it sent a chill through my secondary spine. You've done this before. Fought people bigger than you. Everyone's bigger than me out here, she said with a slight smile. So yeah, I've had to learn how to level the playing field. And Dravik, was that? Self-defense. Her smile disappeared. He challenged me. In front of everyone. I gave him a chance to back down. He didn't take it. You could have just walked away. No, she said firmly. I couldn't, because if I had, every cadet in this academy would have seen that humans back down, that we're afraid, that we don't belong here, and then it wouldn't just be Dravik making comments. It'd be everyone, every day, until I either quit or got hurt. I hadn't thought of it that way, but she was right. The academy was hierarchical, predatory. Show weakness and you'd be eaten alive, sometimes literally depending on who your classmates were. So, you made an example, I said. I defended myself, she corrected. There's a difference. Is there? She met my eyes, and there was something ancient in that look. Something that spoke to millions of years of human evolution, of survival against predators and elements and each other. In my culture, there's a saying, walk softly and carry a big stick. It means don't go looking for trouble, but be ready when trouble finds you. And Dravik was trouble. Dravik was an opportunity, she said, to show that humans might be small, but we're not helpless. That we earned our place in the Galactic Council. That underestimating us is a mistake. Across the dining commons I saw Instructor Veclor enter, scanning the room. His eyes found Kira, and he started walking our direction. I think your opportunity is about to have consequences, I said. Kira followed my gaze and nodded. Probably. Worth it, though. Veclor reached our table, his expression unreadable. Cadet Voss, I need you to come with me. Command wants to discuss today's incident. Yes, sir. She stood, gathering her tray. Before leaving, she looked back at me. Thanks for the conversation, Threll. Not many people want to talk to the dangerous human. Maybe they should, I replied. Might learn something useful. She smiled, a real smile this time, and followed Veclor out of the dining commons. I sat there alone at the table, thinking about what she'd said, about walking softly and carrying big sticks, about the difference between defending yourself and making an example, about what it meant to be small in a galaxy of giants. And I thought about that look in her eyes, that ancient, predatory intelligence that reminded everyone who'd forgotten that humans hadn't climbed to the top of their food chain by being weak. They'd gotten there by being absolutely terrifying when they needed to be. The rest of the evening was a blur of rumors and speculation. Some said Kira would be expelled. Others claimed she'd be decorated. A few of the more dramatic cadets insisted this would start an interspecies incident. that the Zenthari would demand satisfaction, that the whole thing would end in some kind of formal combat trial. What actually happened was far more interesting. But I wouldn't find out about that until the next day. And by then, everything would have changed again. Morning formation started the way it always did. 500 cadets arranged by squadron in the central courtyard, standing at attention, while Commander Hallex delivered announcements that nobody really listened to. Routine. Boring. The kind of military ritual that exists purely because it always has. Except today, nobody was bored. Everyone was watching Kira. She stood in 3rd Squadron, Row 2, Position 7. Same spot as always. Same perfect posture. Same neutral expression. But the energy around her had shifted. Yesterday she'd been invisible, just another cadet in grey. Today she was radioactive. People gave her space, watched her from the corners of their eyes, whispered when they thought she couldn't hear. I stood 4 rows back, tall enough to see over most heads. From my vantage point, I watched the social dynamics play out like some kind of nature documentary, prey animals recognizing a new predator in their midst. Commander Hallex, a Corthan with silver scales and 3 tours of active duty under her belt, finished reading through assignment updates and paused. Before dismissal, I have an announcement regarding yesterday's incident in Amphitheater 7. The entire courtyard went silent, 500 cadets holding their breath simultaneously. After reviewing all available footage and testimony, the disciplinary board has reached a decision. Hallex's voice carried across the space without amplification. Corthans had these resonant chambers in their throats that made them natural public speakers. Cadet Voss acted within Academy regulations. The engagement was consensual, followed established demonstration protocols, and resulted from provocation initiated by the injured party. I could hear the collective exhale from dozens of species at once. However, Hallex continued, and the tension snapped back, the level of force employed has raised concerns about safety parameters during voluntary demonstrations. Effective immediately, all cadet-initiated combat exercises require instructor supervision and mandatory safety equipment. Additionally, Cadet Voss will be conducting a Tentral Fiver seminar next week on human combat methodologies for interested personnel. Wait, what? I wasn't the only one caught off guard. Murmurs rippled through the formation. They weren't punishing her. They were asking her to teach. That is all. Dismissed. The formation broke apart into controlled chaos. Everyone talking at once, heading toward their first classes of the day. I pushed through the crowd, trying to reach Kira before she disappeared into the morning rush. By the time I caught up, she was already surrounded. A dozen cadets, maybe more, all trying to talk to her simultaneously. Questions overlapping questions, some aggressive, some curious, all demanding her attention. A Vorlan cadet, built like a tank with too many legs, leaned in close. You got lucky yesterday. Dravik underestimated you. Won't happen twice. Kira didn't even look at him. Then I guess you'll never challenge me, since you won't underestimate me. I'm saying when I face you, it'll be different. Okay. She kept walking. The crowd moved with her like some bizarre parade. A smaller cadet, I think she was Pelion, squeaked out a question. Is it true humans can kill with just their hands? Without any weapons at all? Most species can, Kira replied patiently. It's not unique to us. But the way you moved. This from a thin mantis like Kreshti. I've studied 47 different fighting systems. I've never seen that exact technique. Probably because it's from Earth. We don't exactly export all our martial arts to the Galactic database. I finally managed to push close enough to speak. Kira, hey. She glanced back, recognized me, and something in her expression relaxed slightly. Threll. Good morning. Some morning. I gestured at the crowd following her. You've gotten popular. Popular isn't the word I'd use. She stopped walking, turned to face the assembled cadets. Look, I know yesterday was dramatic, but I'm just a cadet like the rest of you. I'm not some secret weapon or master fighter. I just used a basic joint lock that humans have been teaching for centuries. That's it, the Vorlan scoffed. Basic? You destroyed Dravik in 3 seconds. 2 seconds, someone corrected. Fine, 2 seconds. That's not basic. Kira sighed, and I realized she was actually uncomfortable with all this attention. Speed isn't about being special, it's about recognizing the opening and taking it. Dravik telegraphed his move. Extended too far. Left himself vulnerable. Any decent fighter would have exploited that. But you knew where to strike, the Kreshti insisted. Precise anatomical knowledge combined with perfect timing, that's not beginner level. No, Kira admitted. It's not. I've been training since I was 6 years old. But so have most of you. The difference isn't talent or secret human abilities, it's methodology. We approach combat differently than a lot of other species. That got everyone's attention. The crowd pressed closer. How so? I asked. Kira looked around at all the faces watching her, calculating something behind those careful eyes. Most species develop fighting styles based on their natural advantages. Zenthari use their strength and armor. Kavarians use reach and multiple strike points. Kreshti use speed and flexibility. Makes sense, right? Play to your strengths. Nods all around. Humans don't have natural advantages. We're not the strongest or fastest or toughest. We're actually pretty fragile compared to most of you. So we had to get creative. We developed systems based on leverage, joint manipulation, pressure points, momentum redirection. Ways to fight that don't require you to be bigger or stronger than your opponent. The Vorlon crossed his arms. Sounds like cheating. Sounds like adaptation, Kira countered. When you're prey, you either develop tools or you go extinct. We developed both. Humans aren't prey, the Pelion said quietly. Kira smiled, and there was something unsettling about it. Not anymore, but we were once. And we remember. That's the difference. Most apex species don't remember being hunted. They've always been at the top. Humans climbed up from the bottom, and we brought all those survival instincts with us. The morning bell chimed, signaling 5 minutes until first period. The crowd began dispersing reluctantly, cadets heading toward their respective classes. But the Vorlan lingered, his expression thoughtful rather than hostile now. This seminar next week, he said. You really going to teach us human techniques? If people want to learn, sure. I want to learn. He said it simply, no bravado, just statement of fact. Kira studied him for a moment. What's your name? Koreth. Okay, Koreth. Fair warning though. Human martial arts are built for humans. Different body mechanics, different physiology. What works for me might not work for you. Then I'll adapt it. That's what you said, right? Adaptation? She smiled. Yeah, that's what I said. See you next week. Koreth nodded and lumbered off toward the science wing. Soon it was just me and Kira standing in the emptying courtyard. That was well handled, I said. Was it? Felt like I was trying to defuse a bomb. You kind of are. Half the academy is terrified of you now. Other half wants to fight you to prove something. She started walking toward the tactical building. I fell into step beside her. Great. Exactly what I wanted. To be either feared or challenged constantly. Better than being mocked constantly? Honestly, not sure yet. She glanced at me. You're not afraid of me. It wasn't a question, but I answered anyway. No. Why not? I thought about that. Because fear requires uncertainty. And after watching you yesterday and talking to you last night, I understand what you are. You're not a threat unless someone makes themselves a threat first. You're a defensive fighter, not an aggressive one. Defensive until I'm not. Until you can't be, I corrected. There's a difference. She laughed. Actually laughed, and the sound was surprisingly genuine. You're smarter than most people give you credit for, Threll. Most people see a big Kavarian and assume I'm all muscle. I'm used to it. Assumptions are dangerous. We reached the entrance to tactical theory. Dravik learned that yesterday. Speaking of Dravik, how's he doing? Kira's expression darkened. Medical wing regenerated his ligaments. He'll be fine in a few days. Physically, anyway. His pride might take longer to heal. Has he said anything? Threatened retaliation or... Not to me directly. But I'm hearing things. Apparently, some of the Zenthari cadets aren't happy about one of their warriors getting beaten by a human. There's talk of an honor challenge. Official combat trial. That stopped me cold. You can't be serious. Wish I wasn't. She pulled open the door. But the Zenthari have this whole cultural thing about saving face after defeat. If Dravik challenges me formally, I'm required to accept or be labeled a coward, which would be even worse than the current situation. But an honor challenge is full contact. Real weapons. It's not a training demonstration. I know. Kira, you could actually get hurt, or worse. She looked at me, and that ancient thing was back in her eyes. That predator awareness. Threll, I appreciate the concern. Really. But humans have survived by being very good at violence when necessary. If Dravik wants round 2, I'll give it to him. And this time I won't be gentle. The way she said gentle while talking about breaking someone's arm made my secondary heart skip again. We entered the classroom and took our seats. Other cadets filtered in, the usual pre-class chatter filling the space. But I noticed something different today. People looked at Kira when they entered, quick glances, measuring stares, calculating. Instructor Veric arrived, a scholarly Tellurian who specialized in strategic warfare. He started the lesson on fleet coordination during multi-front engagements, displaying 3-dimensional tactical maps in the air. Normally I'd be taking notes. Today I was too distracted, because halfway through the lesson, the door opened again. Dravik walked in. His arm was in a regenerative brace, glowing slightly with medical nanites. He moved stiffly, carefully, but he moved. And his eyes went straight to Kira. The entire classroom held its breath for the second time that day. Dravik didn't say anything, just walked to his usual seat, which happened to be 2 rows behind Kira again, sat down, stared at the back of her head with an expression that promised violence. Kira didn't turn around, didn't acknowledge him at all, just kept her attention on the tactical display, making notes on her datapad like nothing had changed. But I saw her posture shift, saw the way her muscles tensed, ready, saw her position herself so she could see Dravik's reflection in her datapad screen. Always aware, always prepared. Instructor Veric noticed the tension but chose to ignore it, continuing his lecture. Smart move. Getting involved in cadet drama was a losing game for everyone. The class dragged on for 90 minutes. Every second felt loaded with potential energy, like standing in a thunderstorm waiting for lightning to strike. Dravik never looked away from Kira. She never looked back at him. When dismissal finally came, Kira was the first one out the door, moving quickly but not running, maintaining dignity while putting distance between herself and Dravik. I followed her into the corridor. That was intense. That was posturing. She kept walking, heading toward the residential wing. He's trying to intimidate me, make me nervous. Is it working? What do you think? Before I could answer, a voice called out behind us. Voss, wait. We both turned. Dravik stood in the corridor, his good arm hanging loose at his side, the other still braced. Behind him were 3 more Zenthari cadets, all of them big, all of them looking unfriendly. This was bad. Kira stepped slightly in front of me, protective positioning. Can I help you, Dravik? You humiliated me, he said simply. No anger in his voice, just fact. You challenged me, I responded, with excessive force, with necessary force. Her tone stayed level, calm. You wanted to prove humans were weak. I proved otherwise. That's not humiliation, that's education. One of the other Zenthari, bigger than Dravik somehow, stepped forward. Among our people, such education requires payment. I'm not Zenthari, Kira replied. Your cultural rules don't apply to me. They do if you want to survive here. Oh no. This was escalating fast. I moved to stand beside Kira. 4 on 2 isn't exactly honorable, is it? The big Zenthari laughed. Who said anything about fighting? We're just having a conversation. Conversation generally doesn't require backup, I pointed out. Neither does breaking someone's arm, Dravik said. Yet here we are. Kira raised a hand, stopping me from responding. What do you want, Dravik? Apology? Rematch? Blood debt? Let's skip the threatening subtext and get to the actual demand. Dravik studied her, scales rippling with some emotion I couldn't identify. Finally, he spoke. I challenge you. Formally. Honor combat, 3 days from now. Arena setting, full contact, yielding allowed. Weapons? Kira asked. Unarmed. I want to beat you the same way you beat me. You mean you want to try? His scales flared red. Anger. Accept the challenge or be marked as coward. Those are your options. Kira was quiet for a long moment. I could practically see her mind working, calculating odds and outcomes. Finally, she nodded. I accept. 3 days. Arena 7. We'll do this properly. Good. Dravik turned to leave, then paused. And Voss? I've been training since before your species left your homeworld. This time won't be quick. This time I'll make sure everyone sees what happens when humans overreach. Looking forward to it, Kira said sweetly. The Zenthari left, their heavy footsteps echoing down the corridor. As soon as they were out of earshot, I grabbed Kira's shoulder. Are you insane? You just agreed to fight Dravik at full strength, after 3 days of him preparing specifically to counter your techniques. Yep. This isn't a demonstration. This is real. He's going to be out for blood, probably. And you're okay with this? She looked at me, and I saw something I hadn't seen before. Not the predator, not the warrior. Something else. Something almost sad. Threll. I knew this was coming the moment I broke his arm. Honor culture doesn't forgive embarrassment. I could have walked away today, refused the challenge. But then what? Live the next 3 years looking over my shoulder, wondering when he'd jump me in a corridor with his friends? This way is cleaner. Public. Witnessed. Win or lose. It ends the matter. Win or lose. You think you might lose. I think Dravik is a trained warrior from a warrior species. I think he's bigger, stronger, and right now very motivated. I think underestimating him would be as stupid as him underestimating me. She started walking again. So no, I'm not certain I'll win, but I'm going to try. We walked in silence for a while, processing everything. Finally, I asked the question that had been bothering me since the amphitheater. Why are you here? At this academy? You could have stayed on Earth, trained with other humans. Why come out here where everyone's bigger and stronger? Kira smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes, because staying in the shallow end doesn't make you a better swimmer. If humans are going to survive in this galaxy, we need to learn how everyone else fights. Need to understand their tactics, their psychology, their weaknesses. Can't do that from Earth. So you're what, a scout? Gathering. Intelligence? I'm a student. Learning. Growing. And yes, occasionally breaking the arm of someone who decides humans are easy targets. She stopped at the entrance to the residential wing. 3 days, Threll. Dravik's going to spend them training, studying footage of our first fight, preparing counters to everything I did. What are you going to do? Her smile changed, became sharper, more dangerous. I'm going to do what humans do best. I'm going to adapt. Over the next 3 days, the academy became obsessed with the upcoming fight. Betting pools formed, training sessions filled with cadets studying recordings of Kira's technique. The Zenthari contingent trained together, working on counter-grappling and joint protection. Half the tactical instructors incorporated lessons about asymmetric warfare into their curriculum. And Kira? She trained alone. I found her in Auxiliary Gym 3 the night before the fight. The small facility was empty except for her, the overhead lights casting long shadows as she moved through forms I'd never seen before. Flowing movements, weight shifts, strikes against imaginary opponents, beautiful and terrifying in equal measure. Shouldn't you be resting? I asked from the doorway. She didn't stop moving. Can't rest. Too much adrenaline. Nervous? Excited. She transitioned into a spinning kick that would have decapitated anyone at head height. This is what I trained for. Not classroom theory or simulation exercises. Actual application against a skilled opponent. I walked closer, watching her move. She was fast. Faster than I'd realized during the amphitheater incident. Can I ask you something? Sure. Punch combination, elbow strike, knee to invisible ribs. When you broke Dravik's arm, you said it was necessary force. But you could have just dodged, couldn't you? Avoided his strike and made him look foolish without injuring him? She stopped, turned to face me, breathing slightly elevated. Yes. So why? Didn't you? Kira walked to where she'd left a water container, took a long drink. Because making him look foolish wouldn't have solved anything. He'd have just kept escalating until someone got hurt worse. By breaking his arm immediately, decisively, I established a line, showed there were consequences for underestimating humans, for harassment, for thinking we're acceptable targets. You made an example. I defended myself, she corrected. Again. But yes, I also made it clear that humans aren't victims, we're participants, and participants can be dangerous. Is that what tomorrow is about? Another example? Tomorrow is about finishing what Dravik started. Honor combat isn't about teaching lessons, it's about survival, dominance, proving who's stronger when all the rules are stripped away. She set down the water. And the thing is, Threll, Dravik probably is stronger than me. Objectively, but strength isn't everything. And that's a lesson the galaxy keeps forgetting. The next morning, the arena was packed. Not just cadets. Instructors, administrators, even some off-duty military personnel had shown up to watch. Honor challenges were rare enough to be events. Honor challenges between species were practically celebrations. I secured a seat in the third row, close enough to see details but far enough to avoid any errant violence. The arena floor was standard layout. 30 meters square, padded surface, reinforced viewing barriers, medical drones hovering at the edges just in case. Dravik entered first to cheers from the Zenthari section. He'd removed the brace. His arm looked fully healed, scales gleaming under the overhead lights. He wore traditional challenge attire, minimal coverage, maximum mobility, and he looked ready, focused, dangerous. Kira entered to scattered applause and quite a few boos. She wore similar attire, adapted for human physiology. Her expression was neutral, but I could see the tension in her shoulders. The coiled readiness. Commander Hallex stood at the arena's edge, her voice amplified. This is an official honor challenge under Zenthari cultural protocols, adapted for Academy regulations. Full contact, unarmed combat. Match ends by submission, unconsciousness, or referee intervention. Medical support standing by. Do both challengers understand and accept these terms? I accept, Dravik said. I accept, Kira echoed. Then take positions. They moved to opposite ends of the arena. The crowd noise built to a roar. I found myself gripping the seat rests again, heart rates elevated across multiple chambers. Hallex raised her hand. Begin. Dravik didn't charge this time. He'd learned. He approached carefully, guard up, testing distance. Kira mirrored him, circling, staying light on her feet. They met in the center. Dravik threw a testing jab. Kira slipped it. He followed with a low kick. She checked it with her shin, the impact audible even over the crowd noise. Back and forth, strike and counter, neither committing fully, both searching for openings that didn't exist. Then Dravik feinted high and shot low, going for a takedown. Classic wrestler's move, using his size and strength to drag the fight to the ground, where he'd have every advantage. Kira sprawled, spreading her base, but Dravik's momentum was too much. They went down together, Dravik landing in top position, immediately working to establish control. The crowd went wild. On the ground, Dravik's size advantage became overwhelming. He used his weight to pin Kira's hips, started working toward a submission. She defended frantically, blocking arm bars, escaping choke attempts, trying to create space. But he was too strong, too skilled. I watched him methodically break down her defense, saw him isolate her arm, start to extend it for what looked like the same hyperextension break she'd used on him. Poetic justice, dramatic reversal. The crowd was on its feet. And then Kira did something I'd never seen before. Instead of fighting the extension, she went with it. Rotated her body in a direction that shouldn't have been possible, using Dravik's force against him. Her legs came up, wrapped around his neck from below, and suddenly his grip on her arm didn't matter because he couldn't breathe. Triangle choke. I'd read about them, never seen one executed. Dravik's eyes went wide. He tried to posture up, break the hold, but Kira had locked her legs together and squeezed. His face started changing color. Purple, then darker. He tapped, frantic hands slapping against her leg. Universal submission signal. Kira released immediately, pushing away and rolling to her feet. The arena went absolutely silent. Dravik lay on the mat, gasping for air, one hand at his throat. He'd lost. Again. This time in front of everyone. This time with no excuses. Commander Halex's voice cut through the shocked silence. Winner, by submission, Cadet Voss. The human section erupted, all 12 of them. Their cheers sounded tiny against the massive quiet from everyone else. Kira walked to where Dravik still lay, catching his breath, extended her hand. He looked at it like it might be a trap. Then slowly, painfully, he reached up and let her pull him to his feet. Good fight, she said quietly. You almost had me. But I didn't. His voice was hoarse, defeated. No, but you learn more from losses than wins, trust me. She released his hand and walked off the arena floor. The crowd parted for her like water, nobody wanting to get too close to the small human who'd just choked out a Zenthari warrior in front of 500 witnesses. I met her at the exit. That was incredible. That was exhausting. She leaned against the wall, breathing hard now that the adrenaline was fading. He's improved. That takedown was perfect. But you still won. This time. She looked back at the arena where Dravik was being checked by medical drones, surrounded by his fellow Zenthari. Next time might be different. That's the thing about fighting. There's always another fight. Do you think there will be a next time? With Dravik? Probably not. His honor's satisfied. He gave it everything, and I still won. Nothing more to prove. She pushed off the wall. But with someone else? Eventually. That's what I signed up for when I came here. We walked out of the arena facility into the afternoon Sunday. Or suns, actually. This planet had two, which took some getting used to. The light cast double shadows, making everything look slightly off. So what now? I asked. Now, I go take the longest shower in human history, and then sleep for about 16 hours. She glanced at me. But after that, I'm still doing that seminar. Still teaching anyone who wants to learn. Still proving that humans belong here. I think you've proven that pretty definitively. She laughed. Threll, I've proven I can win 2 fights against one opponent. There are hundreds of species in the Galactic Council. Thousands of fighting styles. Millions of warriors who've never heard of Earth and wouldn't be impressed if they had. This isn't over. It's barely started. But you're not worried? Oh, I'm terrified. She said it so casually. Every day, I wake up on a space station surrounded by species that could kill me without trying, studying alongside cadets who are literally designed for combat, preparing for a military career in a galaxy that's mostly hostile to newcomers. But fear is just biology. It's your body preparing you to survive. The trick is using it instead of letting it use you. We reached the residential wing. Kira paused at the entrance. Thanks, Threll, for not treating me like some kind of monster after the amphitheater, for just being normal. You're not a monster, I said. You're just highly trained and occasionally terrifying. I'll take it, she smiled. See you at the seminar? Wouldn't miss it. She disappeared inside, leaving me standing there thinking about humans. About their strange position in the galaxy. Small and fragile but somehow dangerous. Technologically young but tactically sophisticated. Prey animals who'd become predators through pure, stubborn adaptation. The galaxy had laughed when humans joined the council, thought they were cute, harmless, a novelty that would fade once they realized how outmatched they were. But humans didn't fade. They learned, they trained, they adapted. And occasionally when pushed, they reminded everyone that apex predators aren't born, they're made. I headed toward the library, suddenly very interested in learning more about Earth's military history. If Kira was representative of human capability, and she kept insisting she was just a student, then I needed to understand what humans became when they stopped being students, because something told me the galaxy was going to find out eventually, and it was going to be spectacular,